elaborate studies of the place to engage the community and get their own expectation. When we get these results, we'll go into the training and hopefully that the level of the funding for this agency is going to improve because we have some percentage of the the ecological fund is dedicated by law to be, statutorily allocated to Great Green Wall. And our belief, very soon, we'll start to get this funding to start flowing in. The moment we get it, then we look at after the aspect of the skill acquisition and so on and so forth. Now, on the part of the vandalization and so on, I tell you it's very serious because in some places we have replaced these submersible pumps and so on 2 to 3 times. So we're going into partnership maybe with the traditional rulers and so on and so forth. But initially, as you said, there was forest guards, and we found out that before we came into the office, the forest guards were employed and they were residing somewhere very far from where these projects are located. After we identified that, we disengaged them. We are now in the process of going to re-engage, and wherever we have the people in that locality are the people that are going to be involved. In fact, we want to call them vanguards, and so Great Green Wall vanguards, to assist us in looking after those aspects and also being on the ground to look after the project and also interact with the community and get the buy-in of their own people to participate in our own projects. We want to get the support of all the states, particularly the governors, to ensure that, in every year, they have a portion of money allocated to the Great Green Wall in their budgets.
A package full of activities to save the land and boost the livelihood of the people. That is, restoring confidence in the people. That's the assurance from the implementing agency of the Great Green Wall Initiative. So many questions commentators will say remain unanswered. Whether or not the Great Green Wall Initiative achieves its objective, time, as always, will tell. But we'll appreciate your contributions on our platforms, Deadline 360 at nta.ng or at NTA News Now. Thanks for your time, and do remember to plant a tree no matter your location. Many thanks and bye for now.
Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. Now, one of the cardinal planks of the Buhari administration is to fight and eliminate corruption in all ramifications. Now, a lot's been achieved, as evidenced by the refund of looted funds locally and internationally. But much remains to be done in retrospect after all the years of looting. Now, as in the past, even the current effort lacks the cohesive and decisive cooperation of all Nigerians to combat the menace. Nothing, for example, is even heard from state governments in the national crusade on anti-corruption. Federal government agencies are engaged in an unnecessary profiling and whose mandate it is to perform certain jobs. Civil and public servants are not playing their expected role in the anti-corruption fight, just as prosecution is a big issue. Now, all these have made the fight against corruption more difficult and challenging, as the President recently said. The task ahead is how to raise consciousness of the people to buy into the anti-corruption crusade. And these are some of the issues we'll be considering tonight on NTA Tuesday Live. But first, let's get to see this report by Aliu Tukur.
Corruption has been said to be Nigeria's biggest bane to development, as the country is milked dry by people saddled with public trust. More than $400 billion oil revenue is said to have been lost to corrupt practices since independence. Every sector of the society is said to be burdened by corruption, which forced the government to set up various institutions to fight the menace. Despite the multiple anti-corruption agencies, the cankerworm of a social evil still persists. With the coming of the present administration, President Buhari intensified the war against corruption in fulfillment of his campaign promises. One of the strategies introduced by the administration to uncover corrupt practices is the whistleblower policy bill, which is still before the National Assembly.
It's a policy we all agree with in the National Assembly. However, we have to make sure that some of the, because of the fundamental human rights of every Nigerian, and because such rights must be duly followed, we have to ensure that the bill complies with certain rights of an individual as enshrined in the Constitution.
In 2016, out of the 176 countries surveyed by Transparency International, Nigeria was ranked number 136 on the table, with Guatemala, Kyrgyzstan, Lebanon, Myanmar, and Papua New Guinea being in the 40 most corrupt nations, a development that analysts attributed to the many challenges of the anti-corruption fight, which include inadequate laws, hasty investigations that weakens prosecution argument, and uncooperative foreign countries reluctant to repatriate looted funds.
The main challenge is lack of synergy among the institutions that are fighting corruption, being law enforcement agencies. We need to see a situation whereby all of them will be working at par.
The challenges of the anti-corruption fight includes the inadequate attention to the needs of the justice sector. What am I talking about? Cases are taken before the court without relevant information, without relevant evidence. And then instead of throwing out these cases, judges are reluctant to throw out the cases so that the public will not accuse them of not doing their work. So it is important that going forward, for the anti-corruption battle to be actually successful, it is important that the investigators, prosecutors, the judiciary, and even witnesses, all of this must be paid adequate attention and provided the necessary logistics, the necessary support, and the necessary monitoring to enable effective performance by the judicial system.
For Nigeria to achieve much in its anti-corruption fight, experts and the authorities are of the opinion that there is need for the state governments to launch anti-corruption at that level, and also the establishment of special courts to try corrupt cases in order to avoid prolonged trials and other pitfalls. Aliu Tukur, NTA News.
And that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let me introduce our guest to you. Would like to welcome Yunus Ustaz Usman, a senior advocate of Nigeria and trustee World Islamic League. Thanks for being with us here.
Good evening.
Also here tonight is Nasara Kogo Umar, a lawyer, international analyst for good governance and anti-corruption crusader. Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Let me also welcome to this program Professor Brahmi Abraham Olagiri. He is a professor in econometrics. He's lectured in about 44 universities in the world And he's credited to have designed the economy of China and Venezuela. Prof, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here.
All right. As usual, we acquaint you with the procedure of this program. At the appropriate time, you can get to join in the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on your screen. You can take advantage of them. However, for those who will be phoning in at the appropriate time, we say this every Tuesday. When your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. Just reduce the volume. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And the best way to know that your call has been passed through to the studio is you'll see your name appear on screen. Once you see your name on screen, it means you're on, and just go straight ahead. Make your comment, or ask your question. Don't bother too much about the greetings. So once again, thank you for joining us on NTA Tuesday Live. Let's begin to talk about this issue of corruption, which seems like it wouldn't go away. Let's put it in perspective. And we begin with you, the senior advocate of Nigeria. Most times, all we think about when we say corruption is money, stolen funds. But there are so many forms of corruption. Let's put that in perspective. It goes beyond just stealing of funds, misappropriation of funds, and any other name you might want to call it. Financial corruption. It's not the only thing we have that's corruption.
Corruption is very wide, but it seems that we only concentrate on theft of public money, which is not supposed to be so. If you come to the office late, you are corrupt. If you inflate contract, you are corrupt. If you are supposed to follow the procedure for procurement and you do anything to the contrary, you are corrupt. If you are a legislator and you pad up budget, you are corrupt. It is not just somebody stealing money alone. Stealing is just a part of corruption. And if you condone, if you have a servant who is corrupt and you condone him, you are corrupt. If you know somebody who is corrupt and you keep quiet, you are corrupt. It's wide.
So all these are the things that Nigeria has been battling to deal with all this while. But somehow, it would seem the one that has overshadowed every other one is the huge amount of public money which has either gone missing or so many projects which have not been carried out and have been paid for, and so many distortions that have happened to otherwise signed agreements. Why is this so?
You see, the problem is that our governments are not sincerely ready to fight corruption yet. And unless we are all ready to fight corruption, we will only be talking. What happened in Singapore was this. When this man came, if he wanted to appoint you a minister, he would call all of them, say, come, look, are you ready to fight corruption? If you say yes. Are you ready? You say yes. Do you know what happens? If you are found to be corrupt yourself, say yes. Say it's death penalty. And that was how it started then. Who want this government? Since it is the government that has perhaps started genuinely this issue of fighting corruption, that if Buhari seriously wants to fight corruption and take out the taproot of this menace, he should call his ministers, permanent secretaries, and everybody. Say, if you want to go along with me, please, are you ready to face the music? And there should be no scapegoat. The moment there is a scapegoat, you are not fighting corruption. And nobody will believe you. And if you look at it, it seems that Buhari is just a single tree in the forest in fighting this corruption. unless we are paying lip service. The governors are not doing the same. Most of the public servants do not seem to do the same. If you listen to the what is a speech made by the chairman of the anti-corruption committee of this administration, Professor Ite Sage, he said that it is even better to have a smaller government that is sincere, like Buhari himself, to fight corruption. Because as far as he is concerned, most of those around him are corrupt. And that has to be investigated immediately. If not, we'll be paying lip service and we'll get nowhere.
Right. Top situations. Maina Sarah.
Yes. The word corruption emanated from ancient Greek, from the word corruptus, which means to pollute. Now, any pollution to originality is corruption. You can corrupt your own body system yourself. You can corrupt your own environment, your home. Character can be corrupted. Life, generally, there is no facet of life that cannot be corrupted. And corruption is a universal phenomenon. There is no country where there is no corruption. In fact, that is the reason why in 2005, the United Nations General Assembly mandated the United Nations Special Committee Against Corruption to specially dedicate the 9th of December as International Day for Fight Against Corruption, in order to highlight the menace of corruption. There are many styles of fighting corruption. You can go the Western style, which is the institutional type we are having, where you have institutions set up, EFCC, ICPC, the Nigerian police, members of the armed forces, Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, Code of Conduct Bureau, the Code of Conduct Tribunal. So many of them are instruments of fighting corruption institutionally. That is the Western style. There is the other style, which is the Afro-Asian style, which has to do with ethical approach towards the fight against corruption. My ethical approach means the clinical surgery of the totality of the way of life of individuals in the society. The manners in which you acquire your well-being. People should abhor anything that is negative, anything that is polluted. Not in a situation whereby somebody will get his looted money and come and then bow down before his traditional ruler to be crowned as a two-tenancy title holder. Or you come to your own environment, you will be spraying money. Or be using the currency of the nation during the OMB days. Or you come and be hiring people to be enslaving them in the name of house helps. All these fighting, all these things ethically is the Afro-Asian type. Now, if we are to succeed in fighting corruption in Nigeria, there are many things we have to take into consideration. Number one, we are saying Buhari governments of fight against corruption. We should first of all change it to federal government's drive of fight against corruption. When we say that, then we are coming in tandem with the provisions of sections 15 of section 5 of the Constitution that says the state is mandated to fight corruption in all its ramifications. By the state here, we are talking about the ministers, members of the National Assembly, members of the Judicature, members of the State Assembly, the governors, even local government, even councillors. All the totality of these constitutes what we define in the Constitution as the state. It is the responsibility for them to fight corruption in all its ramifications. Buhari is only exercising his role or his responsibility under Section 130 of the Constitution as the President and the Commander-in-Chief and as the Chief Executive Officer of the Federation, who should be the one that will design the first finder towards fighting this menace. Now, in doing that, the Constitution has made it abundantly clear that we are not to restrict ourselves only to those that even govern. How many of the Buharis do we see in his ministers? How many of the Buharis do we see in the governors? How many of the Buharis do we have in the National Assembly? How many of the Buharis do we have in the judiciary? How many do we have among the lawyers who are the ones to even argue the cases before our courts and tribunals? And above that, Sections 23 of the Constitution gives us the responsibility of ethical conduct, respect to seniority, respect to our customs, traditions, and culture, respect to our constituted authorities, respect to our laws and regulations. And sections 24.2 went further to even impose binding obligations on the citizens. It is mandatory on you to support the government in executing good governance for Nigeria. In other words, when we say that the cardinal policy, one of it is fight against corruption, it is mandatory on you as a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to assist all the governmental agencies in eradicating this menace. It is a collective phenomenon. So long we take it as a one-sided game, then we are not going anywhere. It is a collective responsibility for us to succeed. All right, thank you very much. Let's hear from Prof at this point in time.
Thank you very much. It's my turn. Actually, I will speak to you as a native of Nigeria and as Executive President of United African States Government. It is true, there's corruption in Nigeria, but it is not true that Nigeria is the inventor of corruption. All too often, we forgot who we are. Nigeria as a nation is suffering from trust deficit syndrome. Nigeria do not trust Nigerians. Nigerians fail to know whom they are as a people. They copycat all others. That is immunity you demand, but God did not give you that immunity. What we have here is this. When we are talking about corruption, about money,